Well, here we are again. I just put up part 25 just a couple of days ago, and here we are again. This thing still won't start when it's cold. I just looked underneath and it's still leaking crazy amounts of oil. I'm definitely comfortable in my decision to move on, get rid of this thing. So I'm going to try to find the reason that it won't start. Obviously, I'm not going to sell a truck that doesn't run. Probably the fuel injection spider or maybe the fuel pump, but I'm leaning towards the spider just because those are kind of problematic. So dig into it. I'm supposed to have like 60-ish PSI when I start it, and I'm only getting 40, and the pressure's supposed to hold, but it immediately drops down. So as I was looking through the book trying to figure out what does that mean? Does that mean the fuel pump, the regulator, or what? I came back and found that fuel is just pouring out of my cheap Harbor Freight fuel pressure gauge that's like been used 3 times. So cool. I'm glad I cheaped out on that purchase. And can I also express how much I hate living in the country? Like, remember when I just cleaned all this crap out of here? There's like another nut down there. There's like some poop on my ACM thing. I hate living in the country. I was missing an O-ring in here. That's all it was. I had to stack a few O-rings to get enough thickness, but it's now holding pressure, but I think it's still supposed to go up to 60 when I turn it on, and I'm not getting that high. Well, it's been about 15-20 minutes. My gauge is still about 45. So I'm holding pressure, I'm just not generating enough pressure. So I have a new fuel filter and new lines all the way up as of last year. So it's gotta be the fuel pump. When I had the tank out, I thought about replacing the fuel pump, but then I'd heard horror stories that the OEM ones will run forever and the aftermarket ones might break right away. So I just left it. Could be 170,000 miles on that fuel pump. So I guess I'll get one ordered, which is really fun because next week is supposed to be hot. So I was gonna park my other car in the driveway and pull off the wrap in the warm sun. I guess now I'm gonna be pulling a fuel tank for the second time in 2 years. At least it's almost empty this time. Guess I'll order a fuel pump and we'll see you next week. All right, well, as you can see, my battery's dead again. So the big plan is I have some work I need to do to the Abarth, timing belt and CV boots. So I was getting ready to do that over the weekend, except I would like to have the Blazer running as a backup, because if I get into the Abarth and I get to a point that I need another part that I have to order, then I don't have the way to get to work. So before I can fix the Abarth and do all this fun work, I need to fix the Blazer, which is where the fuel pump comes in. As you saw in the last clip, my fuel pressure is low, and while I have it apart, I'm going to replace the rear upper leaf spring bushings because they're really hard to get to with the gas tank in there. With the gas tank out, they're a lot easier, so it made sense to do it while I'm in there. It would really suck to do all this work, and then when I go to sell it, have somebody do an inspection and find that these bushings are completely shot and demand money off for it. And then it's a lot easier and cheaper to do while the fuel tank's out. So that's today's mission. Well, probably not. That's tomorrow's mission because I've got a few things to do today, and now I'm gonna let that battery charger sit on there. So hopefully the next clip will be tomorrow. The fuel pump, last I checked, will still keep the truck running. It just doesn't have enough pressure to get it started. So hopefully I can get it started, backed up onto these ramps, start tearing it apart again. The fun never ends. Well, that went great. This is probably a good time to stop, and I don't smoke, but if I did, this would probably be a bad time to do that. I had it balanced precariously, as you could probably see. I just had to unhook the lines and I wasn't able to do that before it fell. So I'm gonna get this mess cleaned up and probably call it a night, because I got a thing I gotta go to pretty soon. So I guess we'll pick this up tomorrow. All right, everyone, it's the next day. Today's mission, get this fuel pump switched, which would be easy. That's all I were doing. I'd be putting this thing back in the car in 10 minutes, but I have this stupid leaf spring bushings to put in. I don't know how that's gonna go. I don't have the proper tool, but I have a various supply of other tools and presses and pullers and giant ass hammers. So I'm gonna set you up and see what we can do. You can see why I had to replace them, because when I removed the leaf springs the first time, the center metal sleeve came out with the bolt, and I wasn't able to push it back in. That's why we're left with this. So I'm gonna stack up some sockets and threaded rod or whatever I can come up with to press these out, because there's no room to swing a hammer. So I live here now. What do you think of my new house? I've been down here forever trying to get this thing out, and this is not the approved recommended way, but when you have no tools, just drove the bushing out after cutting a little pizza slice out of it with the Sawzall, and then I Sawzalled a cut straight down, and then I just started prying up the sides, and I'm almost through, except I killed the battery in the Sawzall. So while that's charging, I'm gonna take a little break and see how quickly I can do the other side, which I haven't even started yet. I tried to rig up some sort of press with clamps, and then I've got my torsion bar tool and then some sockets and a random piece of metal, and I just couldn't get enough leverage on it to get that thing out. It's rusted in there so tight. I mean, 25 Midwest winters kind of tends to rust things, so I don't know how I'm going to push the new one back in. That should be fun too. All right, we'll come back in a bit. Okay, I finally got that back together. Here are the old parts. Again, this probably isn't the approved way to remove them, but it worked. To put the new ones in, this is not something you're going to be able to do at home, because I just grabbed a bunch of random crap I had laying around. But I used a torsion bar unloading tool, a collar thing that went here, and then this thing, I don't know what I saved it from, put it here. So then there was a cup for it to go into. So that's how I did it. If I had a bigger socket, it would have worked just perfect for this. The biggest socket I had wasn't quite big enough. That's how I did it. Onto the fuel tank. Just cleaned that up at the bench grinder. Silly me thought they would include that.
Later. 1 hour later.
All right, stupid thing's back in. As always, it's just the biggest pain in the ass getting these hoses way up here reconnected. So right now I'm just gonna turn on the key, make sure I can hear the fuel pump, and see if the fuel gauge moves. It's empty, so it's not gonna move far, but Okay, fuel gauge moved a tiny bit. I heard a sound. I'm gonna dump some gas in. Well, I forgot to turn the camera on for the grand finale, but I dumped in the 6 gallons of gas. 55 is a lot better than 40. And the fuel gauge is showing almost half a tank, which is probably right for 6 gallons. And it popped off first try. At least I know it was the fuel pump and I wasn't just wasting time and money putting that in. I think it's good. I'm gonna clean up this big ass mess and take it for a drive. All right, so the rear suspension should ride a little better, maybe have fewer clunks. Might have even leveled it out a little bit since that bushing was missing. That should have raised it up a quarter inch, half inch or something, so it might actually look more level now. New fuel pump seems to be working awesome. Gauge seems to be accurate. I'm so glad that worked out, because if I put it back together and it didn't start, I was honestly gonna be like, all right, for sale, as is. It's a running, driving truck. But I think I'm gonna call that one a wrap. We're getting to the end of this series, I think. Well, thanks for coming along on that arduous journey, dropping the fuel tank again. I don't ever wanna do that again, laying on my back in a driveway. That's not fun. If you're interested in buying this, I was gonna say hunk of junk, but this glorious machine that's worth its weight in gold, send me a message. I've got my contact info in the description here. Hopefully there's someone out there that still has love for two-door SUVs. I know I do. I wish I could buy one today, but the only one available is the Ford Bronco. So hit me up if you're interested. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.